Okay, for week two, I want to draw your attention to where we were in week one. We were discussing or leading through the Exodus account, and now we're entering into a period of suffering as we consider, such as the book of Job. And I think this is a good example for us to think really practically about as we work with our people. That suffering is a personal reality. We will face sufferings of various kinds, as the book of James identifies. And it's interesting as you look at the book of James in the backdrop of Job. Job is mentioned there, and so here is that encouragement to persevere and to keep moving along in the Christian faith. And so, as you think about some of the biblical themes of suffering, you should automatically go to the book of Job and then also see the suffering in the Psalms. The Psalms are a wonderful place for us to consider lament, how lament comes out and is often displayed from our hearts. So such as David, the sons of Korah, and the songs of ascent are that desire for God to intervene, the desire for the worshiper to connect back with maybe the temple, maybe back in the throne room of God. Again, that desire to know God more is, and also ultimately for the suffering to ease and the suffering to be done away with, and that the individual might be like the deer panting for the streams of water, might be able to dance and prance and sing out for joy like the trees of the field. And so as you move through the canonical record, especially from the book of Job, and then as you move forward through the Old Testament into the New, you see that suffering as a common theme. Jesus warns not only just warns, but encourages his disciples to think about suffering, the coming of the Son of Man in glory, and what will be the signs of the times. And the disciples asked the Lord that question, and Jesus replies that men will be delivered over to the rulers and the Gentiles, and they will be ridiculed and persecuted for their faith. And then as you move through the epistles, not even as you get to the epistles, but from the book of Acts, the early church is persecuted, goes through times of testing and persecution and suffering. Paul relays to us, or through the hands of Luke, the writer, we see Paul's journey and shipwreck, and Paul alludes to that even in his epistles as he's suffering with the thorn in the flesh. So personal suffering, personal trial is a common theme that the writers of the Old and New Testament want us to be familiar with. And so I commend that to you this week as you think about personal trial, personal suffering in your own life. And then how might you connect with the audience that you intend to minister to? What might you say? How might you minister to them in a deep and profound way?